And thank you for joining us today. This is the final session of our summer series that we're doing here at the PEAL Center. So great. I'm thankful that you're all here joining today. I think for the most part, many of us are in our homes because it's been raining a lot and lots of storms and all that good stuff that I think has put us off into a different schedule here. So at least for me, it did too. Anyway, all right, today our topic is transition grid. And I'll get into what that means if some of you are not sure. But we will be going over the post-secondary education and training, employment, and independent living goals section of the IEP. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am Diane Perry, and I am one of the family resource specialists at the PEAL Center. And the PEAL Center is what's called a Parent Training and Information Center, a PTI in Pennsylvania. And what I do particularly as a family resource specialist is I help and guide families through the special education system, understanding their rights, the processes, forms, anything that has to do with special education. But as you can see on this slide, this graphic represents the 6 key strategies used by PEAL to accomplish all of our work. Families and youth are the center of our work, surrounded by their communities and the professionals who work with them. Today, I want to go over 2 key objectives that we're going to be reviewing. And that is reviewing what families need to know about information that can be entered into the transition grid of the IEP and putting it actually into practice, and discussing the importance of post-secondary education and training, employment, and independent living goals during transition planning. And while I will be introducing 3 young people later on in the presentation, we do have one of the 3 people here joining me today as one of our guest speakers who will be available for some questions at the end of the presentation. Ashton, did you want to introduce yourself now?
I'm Lagos, and I'm a part of the PEAL Center with Diane Perry. It's very nice to be there with her, and yeah. And I go to school at I went to go to college. I'm going to Millersville University, so it's very nice down there.
Great, thank you, Ashton. I'm sure folks will have more questions for you later on.
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so let me get started with some key reminders around transition. So the IEP team, actually, let me go, let me go backwards here and let me get a sip of water. Transition services on the IEP must be addressed in the IEP of the student in their year in which the student turns 14 years of age. Now, that does not mean that you have to wait until you're 14, but it just means that at the age of 14, it must be discussed on that transition section of the IEP. You can certainly start much sooner than the age 14, which we do recommend. A little bit of myself too. I'm also wear the hat of a parent. I am the parent of a young man who's 31 now, but he did have an IEP all through his career in school, and we started much before 14. I used to write a vision. I'll talk a little bit about that as well, but just to give you some more background around transition planning should be a coordinated effort where the LEA, which is the school district, works with the families and the students, and relevant agencies. So it's very critical that the school district is helping families to access the information to help navigate many of the resources that will be needed as the student transitions from school to adulthood. And what I do share with many families is transition is a lot. When you get to transition, there's a lot to navigate, there's a lot to learn. And Pennsylvania is filled with lots of resources and really good resources. The key is trying to navigate it all and what agency, what supports, what will works best for my child, my family, our students. So that is the key. That is the tricky part sometimes. Um, I will share that I just came off of the transition conference that is held every year last week. We were all out in Penn State. And I do encourage anybody who has a student within the transition ages 14 to 22 that you do attend that transition conference, if not once, but 2 or 3 times. Because again, there's a lot of information to take in when you're doing, when you're working through transition. And I'm going to go through some of that with you today as well. Now, schools are required to coordinate transition services by linking families with all the various agencies and support services that are involved in a student's life. And the coordination set of activities relies heavily on services and people, both within the school and outside of the school setting. This requirement is very different than in years past. Before, it used to be like the school had to do everything. Now, schools are required to actually work with these outside agencies. These outside agencies can also come in at the IEP meetings to discuss what they provide and how they can help the student be prepared to transition out of the school. So, for example, a student might need some type of community mental health center. So it's important that they are part of the planning process because maybe they may need to access some type of service outside of the school. So maybe they might need to figure out how to get there. So maybe there's a discussion around public transportation and how will that work within that agency and who pays for that and how do we support the student to navigate that. So there's a lot of different details involved in transition. But starting with that vision is the most important. That planning for that successful transition begins with that vision. What does the student like to do? Where do they like to spend most of their leisure time? What kind of jobs are they interested in? Are they interested in a career? And you know what? It's okay if they don't know. It's okay if they don't know at 14, at 20, at 22. Because if you think about it, if you as a person think about what job you had when you were 14, and if you think about that, do you still have that job? And even further, when you graduated high school and maybe you had a job at that time, do you still have that job? For me, no. And we actually asked that question when we were out at the transition conference in a session, and many people do not. So it's okay to keep changing your mind and figuring it out. That's what we do. That's what these years are for, to try and navigate and figure it out. It doesn't have to be the end all be all that you have to go to college or you have to do this or you have to do this job. You're given the opportunities, and that's what transition is all about. And hopefully we'll be able to help you navigate some of that throughout our time together today. So over the next few slides, I'm going to be reviewing those 3 areas of transition that are on the IEP. So let's start first with the post-secondary goals. If a skill, so in preparation for transition, you need assessments. You need some type of interest inventories, that look at the students' skills and their abilities. And, you need that data in order to support the student and to write these goals and or find those areas of need that the student might need to be successful. So during those assessments, if you find that there might be a skill set that just isn't there, then that's when you're going to be thinking about, well, maybe we need to write a goal around that. Can we write a goal to address that specific skill set? So post-secondary goals are statements that reflect what the student plans to do after high school in each of these three areas: post-secondary education and training, employment, and independent living. So, and they are listed in two places of the IEP. So when you're doing these assessments and you're getting that information is in the present level section of the IEP. And then also some of that information does get transferred into that transition grid on the IEP as well. So there's two different areas of where you're going to be writing where the needs are and where those strengths are, but then also taking that information and putting it into that particular grid. So the documentation is really important and critical as you go through the transition process. Now, under the present education levels of the IEP, which is one of the areas where you're going to find the needs of the student, which then can be reflected as a goal to work on in another section of the IEP. There's also the section towards the end of the present level section is the parental concern section. And again, this is an area where the family does share what their concerns are for the future of their student. And things are getting written in that section there. Some needs are also being written there, which then you might need to address that further in the IEP, whether it be in a goal or maybe a supplementary aids and service, like some type of specially designed instruction for that student. And or maybe when I get to the grid, there might be an activity or a service to address that need. So all that information does need to be on the IEP in order to address those needs. And again, there's different areas within the IEP that you're going to be addressing where those needs can go. And it's a conversation with the whole IEP team as well to figure out where and how can they best support that student when a need is identified. So let's figure out the why when we're thinking about goals, right? So students might share with the family and the school team goals that they have for their future. And sometimes the adults who support them might feel that the goal would be unrealistic. And I've been in many meetings sometimes where, there is conversation around that. And quite frankly, it's okay to have these big goals. But let's figure out the why, right? They want to be able to do something. So it's a great opportunity for the team to really kind of tease it out and figure it out. So you want to ask more questions about that. And I'm just going to give an example about maybe a student wants to be a surgeon, but maybe their skill set of what their trajectory are, what they're working on, doesn't really match that kind of path around being a surgeon. So then you start asking the whys. It might be that the student just wants to work in a medical field and not necessarily a surgeon, but maybe their experiences have always been like, maybe they've had surgeries themselves, or maybe they've had a family member. And for some reason, a surgeon is what is in their mind, and that's what they want to do, right? So But as you ask more questions from the student, maybe they just want to work in the medical field. And the other piece of that is, if a student does have a goal, like I said, to maybe be a surgeon, the other thing to do is to explain to the student what do you need in order to become the surgeon, right? You're building up. All right, that would be the end goal. What is the student going to need to be doing in order to be a surgeon? What kind of schooling? What classes do they need to take? How long do they need to go to college for? How much money do they need to spend for tuition? Like, there's a lot of things to talk about to actually then become a surgeon. So there are steps to do that. And while you could begin to take those steps, the student will also start to hear and know and understand, oh, wow, I got to do all that. I got to go to school that long, all these kinds of things. So, but that could take them down another road, right? It might take them down the road of, oh, okay, well, maybe I do just want to do something in a hospital. Maybe I don't have to go to school, or go to college. Maybe they do want to go to college, but maybe not as long. So there's various things. And that's why it's always good to tease it out, figure out that why, right? Maybe they just want to help people too, right? So maybe it's not even a hospital or being a surgeon or anything like that. So again, it's having those conversations as an IEP team. It's not a situation where you just say, oh, no, you can't do that. That's not good. And I've heard that sometimes, right? It might be unrealistic to some people, but again, you needing to figure out that why. And there's a ton of resources out there, like I was saying earlier. The life course tools, charting the life course. I mean, there is so much involved with that. If you haven't heard about the life course tools, there's going to be a link. You're going to get this PowerPoint and you're going to be able to click on that and you're going to be able to go to that. I will also say that in the state of Pennsylvania, the Bureau of Education and the Office of Developmental Programs, which is another agency that could support a student, they are working jointly on charting the life course. This is some really good research-based information that builds a framework for the student and the family and the people that support that student to walk along that transition process. And there are other tools out there that can be used as far as, planning around the student. They're called person-centered planning tools. There are other tools out there that you can use. But what I will say is charting the life course is something that the Bureau of Education and the Office of Developmental Programs is supporting, and they are doing lots of training at the state level, and it's trickling down into the intermediate units in your area and also within your school district, within the staff and personnel there as well. So you're probably going to start hearing this a lot more. And how is that going to help my student, my child? So we want to share that information with you now so that you can start preparing for that as well. So let's start looking at the grid under these three areas of post-secondary education and training, employment, and independent living. This is the grid that I keep referring to. So when we say grid, I'm sure you've seen this on the IEP in the transition section of the IEP. So this is what it really looks like on the IEP. And I apologize why the N and the Y in location and frequency just didn't fit right on the screen there. But this is the beginning of that transition section. And we're going to be focusing on that overarching goal, and we're going to offer some examples as well. Okay, my screen didn't want to advance there for a minute. So here are some examples of goals for that overarching goal that can possibly be there. So Brian's goal is listed would be appropriate if he was 4. So Brian plans to attend a 2-year technical program. That's what his overarching goal says around the post-secondary education. And this would probably be very appropriate, at age 14 or 15, 16, that This is what he plans to do. Now, as he gets closer to 18 and older, it might probably should include the career area, such as maybe Brian plans to study a career in plumbing, which would then also put equal to that 2-year technical program. Now, Latoya's goal is to attend a 4-year college to pursue her interest in working with people with hearing loss. Hers is very specific towards a goal, right? Or towards a career, I mean. And some students know exactly what they want to do, which is great. So that's why you want to put that overarching goal in there for Latoya, because that she seems very adamant about what she wants to do. Now, Vicky's goal is to attend an employment training program for food service. So Vicky might not be so sure what her specific career might be, but she knows she wants to maybe work in the food industry. So these are just some examples and some ideas about what you can be putting in there. Chris, they plan to attend a nursing school, right? So it's an overarching goal. Now let's look at the employment grid and the employment section. And again, here we are showing the area on the IEP where you would record that overarching goal for employment. And here are some examples around that. Now, before I get into maybe some of the specifics here, I want to say that every student will have an employment goal, because that is the trajectory of every school district. They are there to help the students succeed and to eventually get a job, hopefully. And again, that's going to be changing all the time, and you may not know what that is. So, and you're also going to have some students who might say to you, they don't want to go to college, or that they're preparing, or maybe they're just preparing for employment, right? Some students with some complex needs are among the few who may or may not be preparing for employment. It really depends on their needs and what their complex needs might be. If it's medical and things like that, it might be harder for them to think about where they may want to work or where it would be safe for them to work. But it's always important that you can do transition assessments, and you can always have some type of goal and think about what they might want to be able to do, okay? And that's your target. You want to target what the students' interests are. And as you know, and as a parent, I know too, I was guiding that. I was shepherding where David may or may not want to go, right? So he might have had some ideas, I had some ideas, and we just kind of take that together with the school team, because they're with the student too. So they might be seeing some other things that are different as far as the interests of the student. So you might even run into some students who say, I don't want to work. Maybe they just want to, like they say, if some students may know that they can just maybe collect benefits or something like that. Even though you might have students that say, I don't want to work, they still have to be prepared for employment. So you always need to have some type of goal. Jesse has a goal of working in the travel industry. Very broad, right? Like you can do anything in a travel agency, industry, I'm sorry. Steve plans to seek competitive employment, possibly in the trucking industry. So these are very specific. Now, Mark's goal is just to work with computers after graduation. I don't want to say just, but it's not specific to a career and a specific area. It's just computers. And again, these are broad areas that you can write a goal. And in that grid, as you can see, eventually you get into what are the courses of study, what services or activities are going to be happening in order to reach that goal. Now, the independent living goal doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to be living by yourself on your own. It can, but it doesn't always have to look that way. We're all interdependent. I might be able to live on my own, but I need help with all kinds of different things. For example, I happen to be working at home today because my internet went down at the office. I was there in the office and the internet went down, and I was like, I got to do this presentation for everybody today. So I came home so that I would be able to present to you guys today. So I didn't want to be at home because, again, I'm interdependent. And I have someone here who's, helping me clean my house today. I'm very grateful to be able to have that service. But again, I, have a career, I'm doing different things, I was traveling a lot. So I just needed a little extra help. And that's okay to ask for help. So just throwing that out as an example because it was like, fresh on my head here. But again, independent living doesn't mean you have to be living on your own with no supports. Now, sometimes, depending on the student, this goal is not filled in, but I always challenge the IEP team to think outside the box for every student. And the following slides are going to give you some ideas about what independent living could look like for any student. And I'm focusing a little bit more in this area because, it is sometimes hard to figure the independent living out, right? Post-secondary education, college, going to school, right? Employment, that means job. Independent living can be very broad. So we want to be able to give you some various ideas around that. So it's really developing your skills to be as independent as you can be wherever you choose to live. And wherever that might be, there are things that you need to do when you exit the school system, when you're living independently, right? You have to pay bills. You're going to be traveling in the community. You're going to be doing all kinds of various shopping, grocery shopping, shopping for clothes, whatever that might be. Using your debit card, right? I mean, that's like pretty soon. I don't know. I always do try and have cash, but many people don't have cash anymore, right? So you need to know what do I need to do with those cards that we have to, pay for things. You tap them, you put them in, there's all kinds of different ways they even use them anymore. So,
Diane, there's a question in the chat. Are broader
okay.
goals or more specific goals better, or is it a very individual thing?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the beginning again, Heather. Can you say that again?
Yeah, are broader goals or more specific goals better, or is it a very individual thing?
So, in that overarching goal, it can be broader, but then you have your measurable annual goals within the IEP, and you can be more specific there. So I hope that helps answer that question. Because anytime there's a need identified in the IEP, and it's in that present level section or it comes out of the assessment, it needs to be addressed somewhere. So those post-secondary, the employment and independent living are usually overarching goals, because then underneath it, you'll see those services and activities and different things. And then also within the IEP, you have your measurable annual goals. So you can break it down even more there. So just to give you an idea how that document can be used to help with all of those areas. All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about independent living. And when we're talking about independent living, you want to be able to identify the student's needs. And they could be related in many of the various areas that I have listed here, right? It could be communication. It could be that assistive technology. How does the student communicate? Are they communicating, with verbal language, with maybe an eye gaze, with some type of device? Are they utilizing their hands? What type of assistive technology might they need in order to be able to access their independence? Community and civic participation, volunteering, voting's a big thing right now. There's all kinds of opportunities for young people to get involved. That's a big thing in the news right now, right? Voting, making sure you're registered to vote, making sure places are accessible in order to be able to vote, or even just other civic participation, community events, being involved in your community, going to various I was just recently at a county fair, and there's like 4-H. I remember 4-H. I live in a more urban area, and I remember 4-H when I was growing up, and you get to volunteer and do all kinds of different things. There's Boy Scouts, there's Girl Scouts, all kinds of various things out there. How can we help a student get involved in their community? Build that social capital around that student. Financial literacy. How much do they really understand about money and navigating and loans and paying bills and all of that? Relationships, and that's a big broad area as well. And the PEAL Center, we do have a series of various presentations around relationships, so you can always check that out. Transportation, health and wellness, are they able to navigate that, their health and wellness? Do they know when to go to the doctor? How do I call the doctor for an appointment? Do they need to find, during transition, transition to healthcare is a big piece of this as well, because when you turn 18, they may not be able to access that pediatrician anymore. How do I find a new doctor? Who's going to help me with that? Do I take medications? How do I take the medications? Who can help me with that? All kinds of various things, right? That need to be talked about. And then just having fun, recreation and fitness, right? Having fun, going to the gym, anything that you want to be part of as being social. More independent living considerations. Now, these considerations don't mean you cannot live independently. Again, it means goals that where needs are identified, you want to be able to address them within a goal. Knowing there are needs in some of these areas means writing a goal or assisting the student in some other way is necessary for their success. Knowing and understanding their health care is important when living independently. Like I said, how do they navigate the medications? Or how do we go to the doctor? If they're feeling sick, what do I do? Right? All those things. So you want to be able, how do I navigate if I need some mental health services as well, a counselor, a psychologist, things like that. So these are conversations that you have as an IEP team. Again, some of those tools that I talked about earlier, like charting the life course, maybe you're doing more different person-centered planning, as far as the vision building and things like that. Building that social capital, the people that are around you. That means your family. That means agencies around you. That means neighbors, friends, other family members. Building that social capital is really important. So now let me get into some examples of goals around independent living. And Heather, can you give me a time check here? Because I forgot to put my phone in front of me to tell me what time it is.
Yeah, it's 12:35.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. So independent living example goals. These are, Caroline's goal is one day that she wants to live in her own apartment independently. Zach's goal is that he wants to live with his family with supports and access to the community resources. Now, Jeff's goal is to live on his own once he's established employment. Now, based on the data, the IEP team has determined that maybe a goal needs to be goals and services for the independent living area might not be needed for Jeff. But again, I would leave you with some of those thoughts about some of the other examples that I just talked about around, could Jeff do all of this once he gets a job, right? So I just want to make sure that there are you want to be able to look at the data, right? And get assessments done, get evaluations done. So there's all kinds of planning that needs to be done during transition. I'm probably going to start to overwhelm some families or teachers or anybody who's joining me here today, self-advocates. Again, transition is huge. You don't have to do it all today, but you're getting the information. You're here today, and that's what's important. Figure out one piece that you can do today, one piece that you can do next month or this year. What do you want to work on? School's going to be starting soon. What are some of the areas, pick three different things that maybe you really want to accomplish once schools get started. So I just wanted to, if anybody was feeling a little overwhelmed with all this information, I just wanted to say it's okay. Now, change is going to happen, and change is normal in transition, because the data is always you're going to do an assessment and do data right in the beginning of transition, like when you have to do it at age 14, and by 16, it's all going to change, right? the student's going to be going down different trajectories with their education, with where they want to go, with what they want to do, right? So you're going to have to be changing the present level section as the student gets older, as life changes, right? So all of that needs to come into play. That's why there's going to be reevaluations, that are going to need to happen throughout the next couple of years. And the goals themselves will have to be reevaluated as well, depending on that student's growth. So, enough of me. Let's get into the voices of the youth. Today, I have Ashton, Shania, and Joshua. And as I said earlier, Ashton is here personally, and he'll be able to answer some questions later after we get done. Shania and Joshua, actually all three have recordings, but Shania and Joshua are not here physically with us, but you'll be able to hear their voices throughout this presentation. So I'm going to start first with the post-secondary education training goals. And we asked Ashton, Shania, and Josh to give us an example of what they had as their post-secondary education and training goal. Now, Ashton shared his goal was to enroll in the Integrated Studies program full-time student at Millersville University for the 22-23 school year. Ashton will be starting this journey by taking 2 courses, which was 6 credits per semester at a duly enrolled student. That was what his overarching goal read. Shania wrote she wanted to attend a 2 to 4 year college after graduation. And Josh, his goal was post-secondary education training goal of the on-job training after high school. So that's what Josh was working on. Now, I want you to hear a little bit more. I'm going to tease it down even more. And let's hear specifically from Ashton about that goal and around post-secondary education and training and college and how that works. And Heather, I know we tested this earlier, but please interrupt me if you can't hear this.
You got it.
Hello, this is my son Ashton, and he is going to talk about his post-secondary training goals.
Hello, I'm Ashton Lagos, and I'm currently attending the Integrated Studies program at Millersville University.
Ashton, what were your goals and plans in your IEP for post-secondary education?
During my last year of high school, I had a goal to attend Millersville University as a full-time student and to live on campus in the dorm room. I planned to get ready to do that by taking 2 classes each semester at Millersville and commute to campus from home. This would help me find out if I liked college classes and the campus. It would make it easier for me to move to campus and live there after spending a year on campus commuting.
Ashton, talk about your IEP and how the goals helped you get ready to attend Millersville full-time.
I had goals in my IEP to help with time management, academics, self-advocacy, and communication. Some examples are using a digital calendar to schedule assignments and campus appointments. I also use alarms to help me be on time. In the second semester, I would identify at least 3 accommodations I was using on campus. I would schedule meetings with my coaches and or professors at least once per week. I also learned how to schedule Uber to take me to campus on days I had class. I would have virtual meetings with my high school 3 times per semester and update them on my classes and how I was doing with each of these goals. I would make PowerPoint presentations to talk about my classes, my coaches, social activities I was doing on campus.
Ashton, how did you get ready to do dual enrollment at Millersville?
I visited several schools with my family and looked at them online. I began to use my phone in high school to track assignments, job crews, and appointments. I began to lead my IEPs and share my goals with the team. My IEP team visited the Think College website and looked at IEP goals they suggested to help students get ready for college. I presented to my IEP team why I wanted to attend Millersville and felt it was a good fit for me, and someone from Millersville attended that meeting. The rest is history. I am now beginning my sophomore year and living on campus.
Okay. So that's a little bit about Ashton's journey, and I'm proud to be able to be a part of some of Ashton's journey as well, supporting the family. All right. Let's get into the employment goals. Now, for each of these students, for Ashton, he had the goal of achieving an integrated job in the community with a competitive wage. Shania's goal was competitive employment after graduation. And Josh's Josh has an employment goal of competitive employment after high school. Now let's break that down and hear what Shania says more about her employment and her employment goal.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce Shania Jones, who's a student in the Pittsburgh Public Schools, and ask her to talk a little bit about her plans and employment goals after graduation.
Yes, hi, I'm Shania Jones. I am in 12th grade and I am a senior at Carrick High School. After graduation, I would like to attend a two-year college at CCHC or Morgan State or IUP. I want to go there because I want to become a therapist because I'm interested in helping people.
Shania, how do you think you've learned about those goals and why they might be a good fit for you?
I'll answer the second question. It's a fit for me because I like to help people out. And the first question was because I have friends that graduated this year too. So they would like to go there too. So they told me to look into it and it looks real fascinating for me.
Thank you. Shania, can you talk a little bit about your IEP and how has that helped you develop those goals, and maybe who at your school has helped you move towards achieving them?
My guidance counselor has been helping me out, and I had a meeting my last meeting was in May, and it helped me out and figure out my goals in life. My guidance counselor, Miss Polero, has been getting in contact with me, helping me go step by step into figuring out how to be consistent with my goals.
Great. Are you taking any classes at school that could also help you with that?
Yes, I am in a SOS program, and they're really, really helpful. And I'm going to I want to shadow people to help me go through with my goal.
Excellent. Thank you. And what do you think could be some next steps that would help you reach your goals? You just mentioned job shadowing or maybe talking to a therapist. So I know that's one of them. Is there anything else you think that could really help you?
Yes. Applying for a job after graduation, a part-time job, and to fill out the applications for the colleges and see what else I need to do to see if I can get into the colleges.
All right. Well, excellent. Thank you, Shania. I know you will definitely achieve your goals, but thank you for sharing today.
You're welcome.
Right. So let me get into the independent living goals. For each three of the students, Ashton had the goal to live independently in the community upon the completion of post-secondary education. Shania has a goal of living on her own with a family support after graduation. And Josh had an independent living goal of living at home with parental and agency supports after high school. And we did add in Casey because we wanted to make sure that you knew if there was something within. Casey had planned to manage their own healthcare and hire support staff independently. We wanted to give you just some other ideas around what goals look like for students for independent living. But we do have Josh on our next thing here, and they're going to talk about his independent living goal.
Hi, my name is Nikki Hebecker, and this is Joshua. Today we are sharing Josh's independent living goal in his final transition individualized education plan, Live at Home with Supports and Services. While the overarching goal is simple, it is comprehensive and years in the making. In developing this goal, Joshua invited his transition team to join us in finalizing his vision of transitioning into adulthood utilizing his life course framework tools. Joshua invited my husband and I, his special education teacher, his regular education teacher, his transition coordinator, special education director, learning coach, instructional assistant, music teacher, speech therapist, physical therapist, the BCIU transition house teacher, your OVR counselor, and the supports coordinator. Together, a community of practice finalized his individualized education plan, his individual family support plan, and his individual plan for employment based on Joshua's voice, wants, skills, and abilities. Big table and big dreams. Aromas of an amazing meal, laughter, friendship, family, neighbors, professionals were welcomed into our home that not only care for Joshua, but also about him to complete a path by two of our sheroes. Together, our village made the commitment to continue supporting Joshua's quality life filled with value, purpose, meaning, safety, friendship, and love. While our plan looks different than we penciled in due to COVID, Joshua is living a good life at home in his community with supports and services. He is thriving. Thank you.
Okay. So I hope you found some of those voices very helpful for you. And I just wanted to wrap up a little bit here with some reminders. You are not alone in this transition process. There are many, many people and agencies that are there to support the student and the family in this process, and the school as well. Utilize any of those available resources. And on this PowerPoint, we will have many links from many various places for you to access those resources. And of course, the PEAL Center is here to help you navigate all of that as well. Remember to ask for help when you need it. You know, the only, somebody just recently said, is the only stupid question is the question you don't ask, right? It doesn't matter. You need to ask the question, because if you're thinking it, somebody else is probably thinking it too. So don't feel that, you know, you're bugging anybody or anything like that. Ask the questions. That's going to help you. And even with the best plans, lives change, and you're going to need to adjust the plan as your needs change with time as well. So I'm going to wrap up a little bit more here. We're going to go on to questions in a minute here. But again, you can contact the PEAL Center. You can have a family resource specialist help you and guide you through this process. Here are all the resources that will be on the PowerPoint for you. Many various places. Some of you may be familiar with them. I believe Ashton talked about the Think College. That website is here, thinkcollege.net. There are various employment links for you as well. And then many various independent living and post-sec for independent living goals. All kinds of great, and I don't think we have their link here, but many of you are familiar with PATN, the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network. And they have a ton of information around transition. And they are the ones who put on that transition conference that I spoke about early on in the beginning. of my session and talked about how they have this conference every year. It's in Penn State. They offer family and youth scholarships, and it is a wonderful opportunity to get all the information, network with people, build that social capital, and go to many tables with resources as well. So I really encourage you. And we also have the link there around that Charting the Life course that I talked about earlier too. Again, where the Bureau of Education and the Office of Developmental Programs, that's where they're taking their trajectory. There are many, many, many people being trained in those areas to help youth and families to navigate all of this. We are federally funded. The PEAL Center is, so we do ask you to fill out an evaluation for us. You can do that now with the QR code that's on the screen, and or when you get the PowerPoint in your email, there will be an active live link there for you to check on the SurveyMonkey training evaluations. And we really appreciate you filling out that evaluation. And again, the PEAL Center is statewide. We do have physical offices in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but our colleagues are all throughout the whole state. So please feel free to contact us at any time.